He awoke to darkness, not the kind that comes with night, but the kind that is born from despair itself. His body lay cold against shattered stone, his breath shallow, his heart barely beating. Around him, the ruins of his past life stretched endlessly, remnants of an empire he once built with blood and sacrifice. Where banners of victory once flew, now only ashes danced in the wind. Where crowds once roared his name, only silence remained. He had lost everything, his throne, his people, his future. But the flames inside his soul had not died. They whispered to him, not of defeat, but of awakening. His fingers curled into the dirt, and he felt the pulse of the earth answer him. The world believed he was finished, a fallen king buried beneath the weight of betrayal. They celebrated his fall as if it were permanent. But true strength does not emerge in comfort. It is born in the agony of isolation. He tasted blood and breathed in suffering, but instead of breaking, he felt his resolve sharpen. Pain had become his teacher, and it whispered a single truth: rise. He tried to stand, but his legs trembled. The bones in his body screamed. Every heartbeat was a war drum echoing in his chest. Yet he forced himself up, inch by inch, fueled not by strength, but by will. His armor was shattered, his sword buried beneath rubble, but he no longer needed symbols of power. His power was alive within him, forged in pain and sealed in silence. Above, storm clouds gathered though no wind stirred. It was as if the sky itself held its breath, sensing the return of something ancient, something that had once commanded armies and shook nations. Lightning cracked across the heavens, not as a warning, but as recognition. The world had forgotten his name. Fate had not. He began to walk through the desolate valley where his enemies once marched in triumph. Each step left the ground scorched, as if the earth itself could not contain the force awakening within him. Memories of betrayal clawed at his mind, those who bowed to him in the light but abandoned him in darkness. Yet he did not curse them. They had done him a favor. They had shown him who he truly was. A king is not defined by those who stand beside him when he is powerful. A king is defined by the strength he discovers when he stands alone. The wind shifted. From the shadows, eyes appeared, wolves, their fur black as night, their eyes reflecting the fire burning beneath his skin. They circled him, silent, watching. In their gaze, there was no hunger, only acknowledgement. He stepped forward, and the wolves lowered themselves to the ground, not in fear, but in submission. Not to a man, but to a force reborn. He reached the edge of a cliff overlooking lands once ruled by his command. Golden fields stretched into the horizon, peaceful and unaware of the storm now rising. Towers gleamed beneath the sun, banners of false kings fluttered in the breeze. They believed they were safe. They believed the darkness was gone forever. But darkness is not the enemy of light. It is its shadow, its truth. And truth always returns. His pulse echoed like thunder. Flames ignited across his skin, not of fire, but of pure will. The sky darkened, casting the land below into twilight. In the distance, bells rang as people stared at the heavens, trembling with a fear they could not name. He raised his hand. Shadows erupted from the ground, swirling around him like ancient spirits called from oblivion. From the earth rose figures cloaked in darkness, fallen warriors who had died in his name. Their armor reformed, their eyes glowed with the memory of loyalty. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their presence declared one truth: the king they once followed had returned. He closed his eyes and felt the pain within, every betrayal, every wound, every moment of despair, and instead of rejecting it, he embraced it. Pain is not a curse. Pain is the forge that burns away weakness. It is the proof that one is still alive, still capable of rising. With a single breath, he spoke, not to his army, not to the world, but to himself. "I was not destroyed," he whispered. "I was transformed." His sword rose from the earth, reforged in shadow and flame, its blade burning with a dark radiance that defied the sun. He grasped it, and the ground shook in answer. The sound echoed across mountains, rivers, and cities, an ancient resonance that stirred souls in their sleep. Children woke in terror. Kings dropped their goblets and stared toward the horizon, sensing the approach of something inevitable. Priests fell to their knees, their chants dying on their lips as they felt their prayers go unanswered. The light they worshipped trembled, for it remembered the one it had tried to erase. He stepped forward, and with that single step, destiny itself shifted. No longer was he the man who ruled by the praise of others. No longer was he the king who sought glory in the eyes of the world. He had become something far greater. He was not returning for vengeance. He was not rising for power. He was rising because this world had mistaken his silence for death. Now, they would learn the truth. He opened his eyes. In them burned the fire of 1,000 storms. The Shadow King had risen. And this time, he would not fall. He descended from the cliffs like the coming of an ancient storm. Each step he took shaped the earth beneath him, bending reality to his will. The shadows followed in perfect silence, not as mere companions, but as extensions of his very soul. He no longer walked as a fallen king reclaiming what was lost. He walked as the embodiment of purpose, as the will of fate itself. The kingdoms below had prepared for enemies of flesh and steel. But nothing could prepare them for him. For how does one defend against a storm? How does a blade cut darkness? How does a wall resist destiny? As he entered the first valley, farmers dropped their tools and fell to their knees, not in understanding, but in instinct. Birds fell silent. Even the wind paused, as if creation itself was holding its breath. He did not look at the people. He did not need their fear or admiration. He had risen beyond the need for validation. Pain had burned the weakness out of him, leaving only the pure essence of will. The world no longer shaped him. He shaped the world. From the horizon came an army in golden armor, banners raised in the name of a false king. They marched forward in perfect formation, their shields glimmering in the dimmed light. Trumpets blared. Horses stomped. The commander pointed his blade toward the shadowed figure standing alone. "Surrender," the commander shouted. His voice echoed with the confidence of someone who did not know he was already defeated. The Shadow King did not answer. He simply raised his hand. The sky split. From the rift poured black flame, silent and cold, falling not as fire, but as shadows that devoured light itself. The golden army stopped mid-step. Armor lost its shine, horses froze in terror, and the men felt something they had forgotten: hopelessness. For the first time in generations, they faced an enemy who did not fight for land, or wealth, or conquest. He fought for destiny. The first bolts of sacred light were fired toward him. They vanished before they touched his aura. The commander screamed orders, attempting to rally his men. But the men were not listening to him. They were listening to their hearts as they pounded in their chests, begging them to run. The Shadow King spoke a single word: "Kneel." The command did not strike their ears, but their souls. In an instant, tens of thousands of warriors dropped to their knees, weapons falling uselessly from their hands. The commander struggled to resist, sweat dripping down his face, veins bulging with effort, yet even he could not withstand the force of absolute will. The Shadow King walked past them as if they were statues carved from time. He held no hatred for these soldiers. They were not his enemy. His enemy was the lie that ruled them, the illusion of a world built on false light, false justice, false kings. He reached the gates of the capital. Towers of marble and gold stretched high into the sky, symbols of prosperity and peace. People rushed to the walls, pointing, shouting, some praying. The city bells tolled not with pride, but with dread. For even without knowing his name, every soul in that city understood the truth. Their time of pretending had ended. The gates were reinforced with steel and blessed with the highest magic of the realm. The greatest heroes stood ready behind them, swords drawn, spells burning in their palms. At the center sat the throne of the king who had betrayed the true ruler long ago. The Shadow King lifted his sword. There was no war cry, no speech, no roar of fury, only the sound of the world remembering its master. He brought the sword down gently, as though lowering a feather. The gates did not break, they vanished into dust. The walls did not collapse, they bowed, bending outward as though in reverence. The heroes charged forward, light blazing from their blades. But as they approached him, the light flickered, dimmed, and died. One hero, a man who had never known fear, stood before him with trembling lips. What are you?" The Shadow King met his eyes with a calm beyond mortality. "I am what pain creates when it refuses to die." The hero fell to his knees, not from defeat, but from understanding. The Shadow King moved forward, his presence parting the crowd like the tide before a mountain. Inside the throne room, the false king stood trembling, crown tilted, hands shaking. Guards around him quaked where they stood, unable to lift their weapons. "You have no right to return," the false king whispered, desperately clinging to his illusion of authority. The Shadow King stepped onto the throne platform. His voice was soft, yet it carried through every corner of the world. "I did not return to claim what is mine. I returned to remind the world what true power is." He lifted his sword, not toward the false king, but toward the sky. Black lightning struck the blade. The earth roared. Mountains bowed. Oceans stilled. All across the realms, the sleeping, the waking, the righteous, and the wicked felt the same pulse. Destiny had arrived, and it wore no mask. The false king collapsed. Not slain. Not punished. Simply forgotten. The throne behind him crumbled into dust. For the Shadow King did not need a throne of stone. He had built a throne of will, forged in pain, crowned in purpose. With the world watching, he turned away from the ruins of the false kingdom. For his conquest had never been about reclaiming a seat. It was about awakening a world that had forgotten fear, forgotten truth, forgotten greatness. He looked toward the horizon, where more kingdoms slept under illusions. And with a voice that broke the sky, he declared, "The age of shadows has begun. Not to bring darkness, but to reveal what hides within the light." He stepped forward, and the world trembled. Not in terror, but in anticipation.